Let's make just like the real thing, keto lasagna. In the 11 years that this recipe has been on my website, if I had a nickel for every time someone told me it should be called better than the real thing lasagna, I'd have a lot of nickels. One of the things that's so unique about it is that the noodles are made completely of cheese and seasonings, and yet somehow they manage to taste just like a classic lasagna noodle. The noodle layers are made up of mozzarella cheese, cream cheese, Parmesan cheese, eggs, and then a little dried Italian seasoning, onion powder, and garlic powder. I'm just going to combine all of these in a high-powered blender. You can also use a hand mixer or a food processor, and I'm just going to pulse it until everything comes together, it's well combined, and it's nice and creamy, and I can just scoop it out with a spatula or even pour it out. So I've lined a 9x13 baking dish with some parchment paper and just gave it a little spray with some avocado oil. And that's what we're going to use to bake the noodle layer. You want the noodle layer to be able to make 3 even layers to go in a standard size loaf pan. That's why we're using the 9x13 pan for the noodles. So now that I've got it all mixed up, I'm just going to pour it into the prepared baking dish, and I'm going to use a rubber spatula to spread it in a nice even layer all across the bottom of the baking dish. Once I've got it spread into a nice even layer, I'm going to pop it into the oven, and we're just going to bake it until it's nice and golden brown on both sides and cooked all the way through. While the noodle layers are cooking, we're going to make the meat sauce. I do this one of 2 ways. The whole crew's coming to check my work. So I do this one of 2 ways based on what I have on hand. If I have a batch of my hearty tomato meat sauce already in the freezer, I'll use that. If I don't, I'll whip up some of my homemade marinara, or I'll just do it from scratch like this. So I'll take some ground beef, I'm cooking it with some garlic, some fresh chopped parsley, basil, oregano, some dried minced onion, salt, and pepper, and then I'm just gonna cook that until the ground beef is cooked all the way through. If you're using a fattier ground beef, you may want to drain some of the excess grease before you add the marinara. Now I'm going to add some of my homemade marinara sauce to the meat sauce and just, Chewy's checking on me again, and just let that warm through. Then we're going to pull the noodle layer out of the oven and we're going to cut it into thirds, because remember, we cooked it on a 9x13 baking sheet because we want it to fit 3 layers in a standard sized loaf pan. So I just cut it into thirds, and these will be our noodle layers. I know it doesn't look like noodles, but trust me when I tell you that once you take a bite of the finished product, it tastes just like noodles. So I'm going to start by spreading a little bit of marinara in the bottom of the loaf pan, and then I'm going to top it with the first noodle layer. On top of that first noodle layer, I'm going to spoon on a good amount of the meat sauce and just spread that across the top in a nice even layer. Next, I'm going to top the meat sauce with some shredded mozzarella cheese. And on top of the shredded mozzarella cheese, I'm going to do a layer of ricotta cheese. Then I'm going to place the second noodle layer on top, and we're just going to repeat that same process 2 more times until we've used up all of the cheese, all of the noodles, all of the sauce. And we're just going to layer on some marinara on each layer, some more cheese on each layer, and then we are going to pop that baby in the oven and we're going to bake it. Everything's already cooked, so the goal here is really just to kind of warm it all the way through and get that nice melty golden brown and bubbly cheese on top like you see here. Now let's cut into it and see what we have. Oh my gosh, look at that. A delicious keto-friendly lasagna that will fool even the most avid lasagna lovers. There's a reason that people call it better than the real thing lasagna. For more delicious low-carb recipes, check out my site, peaceloveandlowcarb.com.